I'm here with the lovely Jennie-Ann of Avatarium to talk about Death, Where Is Your Sting, out October 21st on AFM Records. How are you doing today?
Thank you. I'm glad to be here and glad to have this conversation with you.
So let me ask you this question about this record. Before you guys even sat down to make this album, did you have an idea of what you wanted this album to be? Or maybe did you have an idea of what you didn't want this album to be?
Actually, we we longed for writing music, and so we just started, and all of a sudden I think we had 4 tracks, and at that point we because our previous record label had been going through some changes, so we contacted um, a couple of labels and got great response and several offers. And from there, having 4 songs, we continued. So as you know, we had that drive. We wanted to make music, and we could. So that's how it began. Mhm.
How much of the creative process of making this album, of starting off with those 4 songs, was impacted by the experiences of the previous records, or do you look at each album as its own creation?
Well, it's since we make music for Avatarium with a record in mind. Yeah, it's because that's we like that, and we prefer to release music in that context. So no, I mean, we have our sort of our specific sound with Avatarium, and so about that to be in a in that landscape of Avatarium means dark, heavy, and poetic. It's and so that's I don't think we even have to think about that. It comes natural, uh, and feels very important to have creative freedom and to to just start the process non-judging. Yeah.
So what came first for you guys? The ideas for the record, and then that influenced the title of the album, or did you guys have the idea for the title of the album, and that's kind of what influenced the direction of the tracks?
No, actually, we had in the end we had 8 songs. This evolved during the pandemic, and it took us 2 years to finish the whole record from writing to producing it. And there were many uh, songs that didn't make it to the album. So these are the top-notch ones, or the ones we chose. And from the ones we chose, we had discussions of what would be the first single, or what would be the title track, and so on. And we agreed on "Death, Where's Your Sting," because we like the song, and the label liked the song, and it's we thought it would fit as a as the title for the album as well. Yeah. So um, and uh, and I actually that song I had I had written that song with my acoustic guitar by our kitchen table one afternoon, because I several weeks I had that sort of phrase in my mind, "Death, where's you're staying." Of course, it's a reference, or it's from the Corinthian letters, but it wasn't the lyric. My lyric is not a reference, does not have any references to the Bible, but uh, since the pandemic was sort of ongoing, death was really present for all of us, and so I wrote the chorus quite quickly, I think, when I worked with the lyrics, and it sounded quite Johnny Cash-ish to begin with. And and then I sent it to Marcus and asked, do you think this could this make it to Avatarium? Could this be something? And he was quietly positive. and then he put a sequence of chords to the verse, and I sang something to the verse and added the melody, and the lyrics came later on. So and I think I was a bit anxious because it stands out a bit. I mean, we've had these more pop-like songs in our past as well, such as Starless Sleep, if you heard that on it was Hurricanes and Halos, I think, yeah. So we're not, it's not unfamiliar for us, but still I was, well, could we make it work in related to how we sound? So I'm very glad that because we worked a lot on that song to arrange it and to sort of fit our style, and I think it turned out very well, and I'm glad for that. Yeah.
I think it did as well. And you mentioned the idea of creating an album, not just creating songs, but creating songs with a vision of a record.
Yeah.
This album, for me, was a little bit difficult to find the red line through it, because you guys created songs that feel very different and unique in the overall context and the overall big picture of the record. It's not an album that stays very balanced all the way through. Did this created a difficulty in order to find harmony in how all of these songs can live with one another?
No, one could think that, but I would say the opposite. I mean, the records that I love myself are mostly records who are dynamic, who have, of course, a specific sound from the artists that you love or that I happen to love, but the important is that each song stands for itself as well. So you need the sort of the wholeness, but you also need the sort of individuality of each song. And if you, I think if that is the case, then you don't need to be anxious, because we have our sound. I sound like I do, and the guys sound like they do, and we
Yes.
arrange music in a specific way. So I think it's it's not a problem.
When I was listening to this record and I was putting together my thoughts and ideas for the review of the album, I
Yeah.
defined this record as, if Nancy Sinatra was to release a Doom album, this would be the album that she would release. Are you okay with that definition?
Are you okay with that definition?
That's how it felt to me, because
Yeah.
of your vocal performance, the emotion in the lyrics, and then in your vocal performance, the sound that you guys created, the dynamic of that sound. You mentioned Johnny Cash. There's a little bit, specifically at the beginning of the record, a little bit of this Western, almost spaghetti Western twang to some of the songs. And I'm not saying that they sound like country songs, but they have a little bit of that pain, that feeling that you get from some of that kind of music. So when I was listening to it, I was like, wow, this is Nancy Sinatra Doom record. And I mean that with all the respect to both Nancy Sinatra and you guys. I just feel like it's a magnificent album, and that was the best comparison that I could come up with.
Well, it's been 6 months since we sort of put the final touch to the album, and so it's so, at this point, it's so interesting to hear people's thoughts and about references. And yesterday someone said, well, this is like Fleetwood Mac Doom. Which is, and of course I understand, it's people want to find ways to navigate, to be able to relate and understand what is this, and of course to relate our music to other female vocalists makes sense. I don't have a deeper relationship with Nancy Sinatra. I think she's very cool. These boots are made for walking, which is cool.
Yes.
And saying something stupid like "I love you" with her father, which I adore and love. But I don't know anything else about Nancy Sinatra, but you know, it's very interesting to just
Yes.
think and feel about our
It's
music, and just the fact that we seem to awake um, people's thoughts here. Yeah,
I think it just goes to show you that the music, the art that you create, it's yours until you make it public. And then once you make it public, then it becomes
yeah,
ours, the listener.
yeah,
And each one of us has a different story, has a different emotional baggage that we carry. And then when we come into an album like this, we're going to interpret it based on our own personal experiences. So that's where I'm coming from.
yeah, yeah. And which is the greatest of gifts for an artist, to be able to reach out and to reach an audience that does exactly what you're doing now. So to be able to to touch people in various ways. Yeah, and so this is it's interesting. Yeah. Mhm.
You mentioned the fluidity and how important it is for you for the album to have that live, to have those changes. Is that also a way that you guys have of saying that Doom? A lot of people think Doom is very one-dimensional. It's one style, one sound. Everything kind of feels the same. At least if you ask my wife, that's what she'll tell you. So, do you feel like with a record like this, with the fluidity that you guys created on this album, you're kind of
Yeah.
showcasing that there's a lot that you can do under the umbrella of Doom?
Well, I think that's been our case, or the case, since we released our first album, and it's been 10 years since we recorded that, and I think it's probably that is what gave Avatarium a buzz back then, or made people care about it, or became interested, because we pushed the boundaries of what doom could be. I came in with my jazzy sound, and I met with Leif and Marcus, and we mustered a lot of courage, the three of us, to do this. And I think in music history, when those sort of lucky accidents, or what we should call them, happen, that collaborations or new instruments are being brought to new pieces of music, or um, the magic happens. And so I think we sort of paved the way for Doom to be more open for 10 years, 10 years ago. And we've been in that creative space since then. So it's not new for us. It's just, uh, and for me personally, it's not an option. There's no alternative. I want to write music that I like myself, and I need to be free. Yeah.
Do you look
Or
at
as free as
any
I can. Yeah.
do you look at any challenges during the recording process, during the creative process? Maybe now looking back at them, do you look at those challenges as a way to grow as an artist, or to you they're still a pain in the ass that you had to experience whatever it is that you had to experience?
It depends on when you ask me that question. Because when, behind the microphone, I'm very meticulous with details, and I'm not, and I have a lot of sort of grit, and I don't let go until I'm satisfied. And in that process, it can be difficult. But so now, when you sort of forget those parts, it's just well, it's everything in life that you enjoy or feel passionate about will also mean hard work. So it's everything that matters, I would say, involves hard work, and recording an album definitely does. Mm.
Being an artist these days requires a lot of hard work, so it goes.
Well, probably right. But it's, I mean, if you have to be passionate about it. Yeah.
Definitely, definitely. Is there something that you see on this album that empowered you vocally? to maybe go and try a few new things here and there that you've always wanted to do, but maybe you didn't have the opportunity?
No, I think that's a great thing about Doom, and this and the material that we worked with since the beginning. It's because that I really, really loved is that it enables me to put my full range out there, which I realized that I hadn't been able to do before because I mean I'm privileged in that sense that I can go from super fragile to super powerful, and the music enables me, gives me that space. So I've explored my sort of vocal ability through the doom genre, and it's turned out to be a lucky combination, I think. So
Yeah, perfect fit.
I wouldn't say perfect because nothing is ever perfect, but um, I enjoy it so much, and I think it's such a cool genre, and it's you. There's so much you can do. Yeah.
Do you prepare vocally when it comes down to recording an album? Is there anything that you do to get you in that state of mind, in that zone?
Well, no, there's no sort of compulsive sort of disorders going on. But, of course, I think I have, there's a lot of stuff I do that is probably more subconscious. Um, but in this recording through the pandemic was so challenging. So I think we had to sort of grab the opportunities when we could, because someone had an infection that day, or someone's child had, or our son had an infection, and we had to bring him to the studio. And so between takes, I would hear the Gumby bears sing in Swedish. So, I mean, that's reality. You have to sort of, and then when life comes in, you have to be even more focused. You have to be able to put yourself in the zone and deliver, like, and to muster that sort of little bubble. And so it was demanding in different ways this time around, I would say. Yeah, having a, I mean, I'm a mother of a 4-year-old, and which is a quite active period, or in a child's life.
It doesn't get any easier. I have an 18-year-old, and I feel like I always think that as older as he gets, the easier things will become. No, the problems just change, but the difficulty level remains the same.
Okay, well, you have to find, just have to focus and on the love and the things you enjoy, and try to be in the present as much as you can. So we brought him a lot to the studio, and he loves being there and taking part of what we do. But to find focus is more difficult for me. But I mean, looking back on the Fire I Long For, when we wrote that, I was, we were pushing a pram, and recording ideas while doing that, and sending that back and forth to each other, me and Marcus. And we took turns in writing the music, and had a baby at the same time, and that it worked out very well. And we got, and these rave reviews came in. It's like, we could make it. It was, I mean, that's wonderful. You have to, also to be mindful, and to live while life is ongoing. That's pretty important.
When you're recording a song in the studio, do you ever think of what that song is going to require of you come the time where you have to perform it live, or that's an afterthought for you?
No, I think we're mindful about that when we write the music, because it's and that's also obvious in the choice of songs on the album as well, because there are a couple songs that will be quite powerful live. both for the whole band and for me as a singer, of course, such as um, Goddess Island and probably Nocturne. That is a sort of little hello to the early Aussie era or the Black Sabbath era. It's going to be sort of heavy and cool live. So yeah, we think about that and what tracks to choose, of course, to create an album that we enjoy to listen to ourselves from A to Z, and not only once. The aim is to make something that is multi-dimensional, and when you go back, you find something new, interesting in the arrangement, or hopefully something clever in the lyrics, or some new emotion that you didn't think about the first time you heard the song. So that's definitely my aim.
One last question for you, and that is to do with the lyrics. Do you write the lyrics with the songs that you have in mind in terms of the emotion that they kind of force to pour those lyrics out of you, or you have a little bit of a chest where you write some lyrics, you save them there for a rainy day, and then sometimes you go back and you pull them out and revisit those ideas and those thoughts?
Both. And on this album, we altered the process a bit, such as song for the living. I had written this verse or this little poem, and I sent it to Marcus. So that was something that I had, and he came up with some ideas, and we worked with that song. And in other cases, Marcus comes up with a riff and a sequence of chords, and then we go from there. So it's, but so it's quite open. Mm-hmm.
It's whatever the wind blows on that day, depending on how you feel.
Yeah, it depends on what sort of where the song is going, and of course I have my book where I write down ideas, and I sort of keep safe for later. So that's how I work, and for safekeeping until the active process comes along. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, Jennie-Ann, thank you very much for your time today. It was absolutely a pleasure, a delight, and hopefully I didn't offend you with a Nancy Sinatra comparison.
No, you didn't.
So I just want to mention that because I absolutely love the record. I lost count. I've lost count how many times I've played this album. It just really pours emotion out of it, and because of it, it becomes an emotional experience when you're listening to it, and it's just beautiful sounding record, and your vocals are absolutely outstanding. So thank you very much for the record, and thank you very much for taking the time today.
Thank you very much for having me here, and for your interest in our music, and hope to see you and be able to see you and play somewhere near.
Yeah, that would be a pleasure. I would definitely not miss a show if you guys ever came close by, because I'm dying to hear some of these songs live and experience what it would be to listen to those songs live. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.